Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marketing for Humans webinar series. My name is John Miller. I'm the founder of Scribe Wise. We came up with the idea for the Marketing for Humans series at the start of 2021. I think obviously the pandemic for so many people has, let me be on camera as I'm talking so I'm not a disembodied voice, kind of more human. The idea for Marketing for Humans came to us at the beginning of 2021. Obviously, during the pandemic, a lot of us have thought about our humanity in regards to work, and we've been seeking that kind of human contact. So that's a part of it, and I think that was kind of the germ of the idea to a certain extent. But also the idea that I hope that most of you here today agree that marketing is both art and science. And over the last several years, science has kind of overtaken the art, and that's not dangerous in like a life-threatening sense. But it's dangerous for us marketers because the tail starts to wag the dog and the marketing becomes less good. We create fewer human connections. And too often we're working for the data instead of putting the data to work for us. So hence we came up with the idea for Marketing for Humans. And I think the work that Navigate has done, that we've been able to do in tandem with them, has very much kind of hewn to that promise. And so Heidi White is here, and you can see her, and we'll be talking to her in just a moment. But I'll get some logistics out of the way first. This is going to be a live case study with a conversation between Heidi and I about how Navigate brings its story to the marketplace. First, for this webinar series, we've been very excited to have a charitable component. What could be more human than trying to help others? So I'm flattered Heidi has chosen a charity very close to me, Easter Seals of Southeastern Pennsylvania. I've been involved with Easter Seals for close to 20 years. It's a phenomenal organization that helps people with disabilities and their families live better, more fulfilling lives. So we're asking you to make a donation. It does not have to be a huge donation. We're putting the link to make donations into the chat. If $10, $20, whatever. We will match that up to $250. You don't have to give $250, but Scribe Wise will. So thanks for your participation in that and for helping others. So let's get to it. Navigate is a management consulting firm in the Philadelphia area, founded in 2005. They work with the largest companies in the region and beyond, working directly with C-level decision makers in most instances. Navigate likes to say that they work shoulder to shoulder with their clients to handle their most pressing problems and impact what drives performance most, business performance most, which is the way that people work together. Heidi White is their chief marketing officer. She's been there for a couple of years. We've had a great time working together. So much so that I'm excited to tell you that you have a chance to work with Heidi. She is hiring a senior marketing manager. And we'll drop that link into the chat. So if that job looks enticing to you, or if you know someone who you think would be a good fit, please do feel free to apply. So this is a case study. We're going to set it up in kind of standard case study form: problem, solution, result. So I hate to say problem, Heidi, because that sounds insulting, but let's talk about the context that Navigate found itself in. You arrived there in early 2019. How did you land there? And what was your career prior? Like, give us your background so people can kind of have an idea of where you were coming from.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for supporting Easter Seals. I've got a daughter who's very engaged in the special needs community, and it seemed like the perfect fit, something that's important to me and important to John. Okay, so my career story, and we could talk about this for an hour, but we won't. It's not a linear story, and I actually celebrate that. So I started my career in investment banking, if that tells you anything about how this is not going to be linear. And I still love a great spreadsheet, so there's that. But after business school, I ended up going into consumer packaged goods, working for Unilever, which you would think has nothing to do with my role today, but actually has a lot to do with that. And maybe we'll come back to that. Then ended up moving to Philadelphia, had 2 young kids, didn't want to work full time, looking for part-time, led me to working in professional services for a law firm. I was like, this is great. I'm going to do this a few days a week. And then one thing led to another, and I became the chief marketing officer of Fox Rothschild, which was a great opportunity, excellent role, great visibility into professional services. Had some kids who needed to be at home, me to be at home more, did some project work for a few years, and then came back to like company life in 2019. And I say all that in part because I think that if you're a primary parent, which I am, careers often aren't linear. Every single woman I know who now has teenagers has taken twists and turns in her career to make things work. And I think it's actually given me a more diverse skill set than I would have had, which has helped me in my role at Navigate. And I also feel that I'm a better kind of mentor and coach to others because of the fact that my career life hasn't been a straight line.
Cool, good. Where was Navigate when you joined?
So Navigate was, first of all, not in Center City, and I was like, I don't do that. That was always my world: big companies, big cities. Navigate was this great business that I'd never heard of. I wasn't sure what to make of it. I loved every single person I met from the first moment, and I met a lot of people because I interviewed with 8 people, and I was really glad. And maybe we'll talk about that later. It was a great business with very steady growth, with an exceptional roster of clients. And that was the first thing that stood out to me. So, for those who don't live and breathe management consulting every day, like I do, it's a gigantic category. And we are not Deloitte, we are not McKinsey. And by the way, we don't want to be that. And yet we have major clients, not all the biggest companies in the region, but I liked your intro, John, because I like your optimism on that. But many of the largest employers of the region have turned to us and partnered with us. And that's told me something special about the business. So they've been growing steadily, but they also knew they needed to make an investment to continue the next phase of growth. And that included building a really strategic marketing function. And luckily for me, they had a marketing manager in place who was like super excited for the next chapter and incredibly talented. And we've done amazing work together for the last several years.
Great. One of the things, I think you said this in our first ever conversation, talking about the senior partners at the firm, is that they're so warm, which gives it gives everything a different feel. It makes work, I think, a little more homey, a little bit more human. So talk about what made you realize that, or how that came across to you.
I think it's down to 2 things. One is that I'm used to working for really big companies, which just, can feel less personal and just more corporate. But it's also that there's a very special corporate culture here. This business is very personal to the leadership team, and it's very personal to me. And so it was important to me also because I'd never worked for a company anywhere near this size, always much bigger ones, to know what I was getting into. And so I think I met with 7 or 8 people, and every single person I met brought something different to the table, and every meeting was warm. And I can still recall the conversations I had with each person. And that just told me a lot about the culture that I was joining. And that's been true ever since. Like I was saying to my colleague, our chief people officer, I've never laughed as much in a role as I have in this one, and like for good reasons. It's a great place to be. There's hard work, but we also enjoy each other. Good.
Not for the wrong reasons. You're not laughing for the wrong reasons.
No, always right.
You also, in that first conversation, which I do remember, which is interesting. We weren't working together yet. It was just someone had introduced us. And one of the questions I ask you, which is a question I like to ask, is how many clients do you have? And the reason I ask that is because I want to understand how big is your universe, and do you need to find your next 10 clients? Do you need to find your next 1,000 clients? What is it? Because that really impacts what type of marketing you do.
Yeah, and it was funny because I don't remember exactly what my answer was, but I hope my answer was something like like not as many as we're going to have if we do this right. I think when you asked me that, I probably didn't know the answer, because that's not really how we measure our success. I mean, as an example, every company we work with is generally at least $1 billion in revenue, and some are hundreds of times that big. So we can have many, many buyers inside one company. So is that one client or is that multiple clients? That's just not how we look at it. And actually, I think a big part of this role has been like ignoring some of the noise, and just really saying like, we're not going to focus on this. We are going to focus on that, because we have a small, very important group of buyers at the very top of large companies. So a lot of the tactics that a lot of people are chasing and a lot of the metrics a lot of people have, they don't apply to us. And we've stayed true to that.
Right. It's not mass marketing. It's extremely targeted.
Yep.
Let's discuss that a little bit more, the audience. So it's very high end, very busy buyers ultimately. I believe Navigate, for the most part, until you came on board, it was very much, and I think still is very much, relationship driven. It's that type of a business. But they're not going to just hire you because someone's your brother-in-law. They're going to hire because maybe they're a brother-in-law or a neighbor or whatever, but also that you've demonstrated your smarts. So how do you break through to that audience? And what was your notion of that when you first started? And is it still the same notion today?
So I think in the very early days, Navigate did rely on someone to kind of take a gamble on them, and choosing them instead of a larger firm. And then we got in there, we did the work, it spoke for itself, and like one thing leads to another. I think that the dynamics of this industry will always focus on relationships, but that's never going to be enough. And when you are a small and mighty firm, you have to stand out. And one of the ways we really have done that is through content marketing. And that isn't part of our strategy. That is our strategy. And it has, like, we're still figuring it out, but it has changed the way that we talk with clients. It has changed the way we identify opportunities. It has changed what we go after. And it's just made us a much stronger business. I also would say that there was a lot of fundamental work that had to be done in the beginning to say, like, okay, who are we actually going after, right? Because when you come in, we have great salespeople. They'll be like, oh, so many people are our clients. And you'd say, actually, I can't build a marketing strategy off of that. Like, unless you have a cajillion dollars to spend, we need to get more focused. So one of the things we did was really like go back and do a really deep dive on like the last, I think, 24 months of work. Like, who was the buyer? How do we find it? What was the like sort of almost journey like to signing a project? And then that helped us really figure out, okay, exactly who are we focusing on? Who are we not focusing on? And then once you do that, the tactics become clear. So there was a lot of that work up front.
And the content marketing, that can be misconstrued sometimes. So it's not an SEO strategy. That's I just want to make that clear to people, like, because I think content marketing in some circles has become a synonym for SEO, and that's not the universe in which you're in.
We spend $0 on SEO. And in fact, John, when you came out with your SEO delusion piece, which, by the way, if people haven't read it, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Again, I think like you have to ignore noise, right? Like, we know that we can get a certain number of likes on a post on LinkedIn. Like, that doesn't matter. It's nice, but that's not really what we're going for. What we're going for is a very specific set of eyeballs, right? That often are within our networks, for our partners, for our sales team. And the most important way that people see our content is that we share it with them one-on-one in a customized fashion. That's how we win business. That's how we measure success. Those are the kind of metrics that we look at. And that's the kind of actual behavior that we measure inside of Navigate.
Right. So you've been at Navigate about 9 months, and you issue an RFP to try to find a marketing partner to join you to help you fulfill this directional strategy, but not completely formed, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, and you were on our list and you were like, sorry, I don't do RFPs.
Who likes RFPs? Raise your hand. No, no
Yeah.
one's raising their hand.
No, I totally get that. And as a professional services marketer, I would often say to people, especially when I was at Fox Rothschild, like, don't answer that because like you're not equipped to win this, or it's a bad sign. But in this case, it was the right choice for us. And I think once you read what I put together, John, once we talked on the phone, like you softened a little bit, you know.
I did cave.
You did cave a little bit, but you also did say to me, you know, that like we're not a big agency and it's not going to have like tons of razzle dazzle. I remember saying to you, I don't care about razzle dazzle. I care about like the quality of your thought. And I guess that was the first thing, even before you put pen to paper, it was like in the first conversation, I remember thinking like, has he been like a mole in the office? He's been like sitting here and listening to what's going on, because it was like you saw us, and maybe because you saw some of Scribewise or it's in some of yourself in Navigate, like these adolescent companies that you sort of, that I know you guys have been talking about. And again, that's a really great read. So maybe Cassie will put that in the chat too. That's kind of where we were. And you like kind of really understood right away where we were, where we weren't, where we wanted to go. So that, for us, I'm extremely happy we did the RFP process. We weren't looking for like the lowest bidder. We were looking for like who has the right experience to help us over the next 5 years, right? Or longer, right? Because we didn't want someone who was just going to come in and help us rebrand and like, then we were going to just ask you for subsistence type stuff. We wanted a partner. And we also wanted to make sure that it was someone we were going to have fun being in the trenches with, because like this was a big move and a big investment for the company. It had to pay off and it had to also not be painful. So
Right. Well, I'm glad it's not that painful. So, and I will say it was, RFPs can be a really, anyone who's ever received one or replied to one knows they can be disastrous and completely confusing. And it was, I think, the clearest RFP I've ever read. Like I knew it was easy to understand what the responses were supposed to be. Sometimes you're guessing. And I felt like we were guessing less. So,
well, I think that's a really good point, because if I had tried to write that RFP in the first month or two that I'd been at Navigate, it would have been terrible, right? Because I didn't know the business well enough. I didn't know what wasn't working in order to say what we needed in order for things to start working. So, you know, some of it is just that I allow myself like enough time to be able to be clear about what we needed. And I also had, again, the benefit of like very deep institutional knowledge that like really added to what I knew, because our super fabulous marketing manager, Katie, had worn 6,000 hats at Navigate and brought a lot to the table.
All right, great. So that's the context, i.e. the problem. So then you move into the solution, and we start working together. And something you just mentioned is that you took time before you issued that RFP. You got, and I think it's interesting. And as we talk to prospective clients, everybody wants to go. But the partners at Navigate and your colleagues gave you the breathing room, and they had the patience. And when we first started working together, you were not in a rush. And I and other team members, you were working with a business consultant at the time, talking about, you know, how to not just marketing, but how are we going to run this business as we move into the future, and what are our goals, et cetera. And I got to be fly on the wall in a lot of those meetings, which was great to just hear. You know, I really got great insight, but nobody was in a rush 2 weeks after we signed a contract to say, where are the deliverables? So how did you get, what I get, I think you're lucky that your partners were patient, but also I think it's something you brought to the table because you had some experience and you were confident, and that's kind of a rare thing to be able to be given that leeway.
Yeah, I think Navigate is always good at taking the long view and tends to kind of see what it needs and prepare accordingly. I also, I remember saying to him at one point, like, if you're looking for an order taker who's just going to be like, oh, you want this like one pager, like, okay, I'll put that together. Here you go. Like, don't hire me, because that's not how I roll. And also that's just not what you need.
Right.
And I think the thing about them is they've been so busy, like growing the business and developing great relationships, that they knew they didn't have the answers. And so they had a lot of questions of me, which was great. And then I had a lot of questions of them. And just the initial conversations I had with them made it clear to me that like they wanted someone to lead them through this. And so I get, and I guess the other thing is I do remember early on, and I think the person who said this to me is probably in the audience here. It's like, when are we going to have a new website? And I remember saying like, not soon, because that's a tactic. And first we got to get the strategy right. And I guess one of the things that became clear is when we really started to dig into what the marketing strategy should be, it became clear we had more work to do at the business strategy end of things. So it was almost like the marketing strategy went upstream and said, hey, we got to push on the business strategy more. And that was all like a good thing. So that's, they're really, remember, they're working with giant companies. Like they know how to think big picture. They understand that like good work takes time. And we were doing like really important foundational work, which hadn't been done, which they appreciated. And they kind of came along. They're great learners. That's why they're great consultants. So it was a kind of happy situation.
Well, and I think it's a truism, and I think a good takeaway for folks is that your content strategy should ladder up to your marketing strategy, which needs to ladder up to your business strategy. That doesn't always happen because people say we need a dozen blog posts, and there's no, and you're guessing. But you had the time to think about it and strategize around it, and we were afforded that time as well, which was just frankly a great gift and a great way to start. Heidi, as you know, I'm a fanboy of Doug Kessler from Velocity Partners, which is a UK-based content marketing agency. And he has a great post out late last week talking about part of building your strategy needs to say that we're going to have a learning strategy, that we are going to learn, because it's going to make everything downstream better. And it's something I've believed for years, except he always says it much better, which is annoying. But so if you guys want to go find that post, Velocity Partners, please do. And maybe Cassie can dig that link out too, or making her very busy. Thank you, Cassie. So we started working together in November. We had a bunch of sessions, listening sessions, and we came up with the story, I would say by early to mid-January. We had it. Our team put our heads together. We drafted it. We sent it over to you. And you really liked it right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, and it's with you, we were able to give you a Word doc or Google Doc of what the written story, which is hard to do with a lot of people because it's an unimpressive deliverable. It's one page. So what we like to do typically is turn it into an animated video, which we did for you, but you had signed off on the script for that. So Cassie, I believe you have that queued up. If you can play the Navigate story video, that would be terrific.
Sure, give me 1 second.
Give you a countdown.
Can you see the screen, John?
We're good to go, yep.
What happens tomorrow? That's the question every business is trying to answer. Well, here's a little secret. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. No one does. And if someone claims they do, be very, very skeptical. We have expectations and fact-based opinions and forward-thinking people, but the future is a very fluid thing. That means certainty is dangerous. The best way to mitigate uncertainty is to define the future yourself. At Navigate, we help companies do just that. Defining strategies is at the heart of what we do, but implementing those strategies to actually attain new levels of business performance, we believe this is the hardest part, and it's where we are at our best. It's why so many clients turn to us year after year as they adapt to an ever-churning tide of change. We're with you, rolling up our sleeves to work shoulder to shoulder on your challenges. Our clients face similar hurdles, but their cultures and circumstances are entirely unique. And so are the solutions. The constant is that our North Star is always what's best for our clients. Always. They see this every day. They feel it. It creates a bond that enables the mindset shift that frees people to think smarter and focus on what drives business performance, the way people work together. Hardwired to deliver measurable, sustainable impact, we work with senior executives at large enterprises to drive transformational change, from merger integration and new operating models to customer experiences and major digital investments. The challenge can seem daunting, a blue ocean of infinite possibilities. We help you chart the best course, and we help you get to where you want to go, today, tomorrow, and far into the future.
I hope everyone appreciated the familiar voice on that video.
Yeah, I know I was going to say that's, so that was my voice, in case you didn't figure that out, but I really didn't want to do that, but you guys made me, so.
We did. You
But-
also, when it's so interesting that you say you didn't think the Google Doc was like an impressive deliverable. For us, it was like the deepest sigh of relief we'd had in a long time, because like, I would say my experience in coming to Navigate was it was a great business, great people, great clients, didn't present itself as well as it could on the outside. And we had done so much work and we knew all the good stuff was there. And this, that Google Drive doc, like excited me as much as the actual final video did, because it was like fresh eyes, absolutely true to who we are, absolutely true to our employees, because our employees really are our brand. So that was not a small deliverable to me. In fact, I mean, really the quality of the writing at Scribewise means everything to us. We have very sophisticated readers. In fact, I used to send you like snapshots of things from The Economist that I loved, like, so they have a kind of a cheeky tone and all that. And you like accepted that and you were like, so, you know, the power of words is real, particularly depending on who your target is.
Definitely. So you saw in that video, we also came up with a new logo, new visual look and feel. That was all done by mid to late February. And we're like, all right, let's get rolling. And we kind of said, well, but the website's still the same. So we really can't. So again, patience. So we started working on a website. And then 2 weeks after we started on the website, global pandemic. So, but the website finally gets launched in June. And one of us, maybe it was me, it might've been Bill or Lindsay from our team, said offhand, you know, there's not necessarily a magic Monday when we release everything. This isn't it's not, you know, Tim Cook at Apple releasing all the new products. But you guys grasped onto Magic Monday. So we actually held till June, and then we had Magic Monday. And I think you mentioned Katie did a great job of creating a lot of excitement internally about the brand.
Yeah. I mean, you know, for us, one of the kind of key constituents for us is our employees. They needed a brand, like they knew how important the work was that we did for clients, but it's important to feel really proud of the place that you work, and the enthusiasm, the positive energy around the rebranding was amazing internally. And also, I will say that now this seems like nothing, but at the time we were like, oh my God, we're going to unveil this totally new brand over Zoom, which now everything's done over Zoom. But at that time it was like, how are we going to make this engaging? But I mean, we found ways, and I really feel like it lifted people up at a time when they really needed it. And also, you know, I think one of the big mistakes professional services firms make is they like promise some experience and like create this brand that's actually very divorced from what the experience is of working with that firm. And when we put together what we put together, it was because we looked at first who we are when we are at our best, who our consultants are, who the whole team is. And we created the brand from that. We didn't like go into a room and come up with something that we thought was whizzy. We like really looked at our own business and our own people. So it was worth waiting to have all the pieces together. And I know you were kidding about Magic Monday, but we really wanted everything to be like, flip the switch, it's all different. And our people were really great and rose to the challenge because there were a number of things they needed to do in terms of being ready, and they were super.
And that's an important point, is that the best brand is a reflection of the personalities of the individuals within the company. And I think that we did get to that. I think that's a good reflection of the energy Navigate brings, and the whimsy, as someone may have said somewhere along the way. You can see that Heidi and I can just sit here and talk forever. So I think we need to pick up the pace a little bit. So we set the foundation for the brand dialogue, as we call it. That is the Navigate story. But now we have to tell that story in an ongoing way. So we started with content marketing. We work closely with you, but we also work closely with a variety of SMEs across Navigate. So what typically happens is an SME will come to you and say, I had an interesting conversation with an executive at X company, and I would like to follow up and kind of codify our thinking a little bit around it. And then we'll create some type of piece of content around that. Could be a blog post, could be an ebook. Early on in the pandemic, we did just a deck to share about re-emerging into the world, into this virtual world that we're all still living in. You did a survey of return to work or remote work survey. What do people want? Surveying a number of your clients and some others. And we turned that into what we call a story stream, which is a long kind of interactive web page that really brought that to life, I think. So I guess for our audience, talk a little bit more about the content marketing process and how it works from your side.
It's terrific. People inside the company love to be part of content creation. They understand now that they're not doing the writing. Ideas come from everywhere. Sometimes it comes from, like, we have a client who has this issue and we've done some work on it, and or there's this opportunity that's come up, and we have content that we could put together that could be really helpful. I think the great thing for me is that I'm learning all the time when we do this, and so are you. And when you get on the phone with one of our subject matter experts, it's like, it's great if I can be there and I can help shape it, but I don't need to be, because the questions you ask and their thoughtfulness is a great combination. So you walk away with what you need, and then you're able to produce content. And sometimes I'm just like, I'm with an ad here. This is tremendous. But it's also always in the Navigate brand and the tone of voice and reflecting all of the sort of elements of our brand story. So it works incredibly well.
Cool. Thank you. And I think I said this to you the other day. I think there's some jealousy amongst Scribewisers who don't work on Navigate, because it's a very good relationship, but we're able to have an impact. That's what we want to do, is to have an impact on your business, which is my segue into talking about the results. What has been the impact? We've been working together for not quite 2 years. Content marketing has been going hard for 15 months or so. What business impact has there been?
Well, so I think it's completely changed the way that we sell. So I think we used to be reliant on relationships in a much more one-dimensional way than we are now. And content, we have all these obviously personas of like who we're targeting and what's on their mind and how content can help address what's on their mind. But I think more than that, we are much better at sharing our point of view on current and important topics for the clients that are, for the companies that are really our target. And, one of our people said the other day, this helps us move much more quickly to identifying opportunities where we can help clients. So do I think it shortens the sales cycle? Yes. Do I think it helps us win, sort of win work? And also sometimes just to get, like a lane in the race, right? Because sometimes this is competitive and sometimes it's not. But when you are a small and mighty firm, you have to be very clear about what your point of view is and what you have to offer. And you have to do it in your own unique way, because, you know, you will not be Deloitte, you will not be McKinsey. We're not trying to do that. But what we do fits with the type of company we are and the type of thinkers we have, I would say.
How about as an employer brand, which is something that you're seeing a lot more about all across every industry? You have to have a strong employer brand, especially, we all know it's hard to hire people now.
Yeah.
How has that impacted Navigate's hiring, recruiting, and even just internal morale?
Yeah, I think that we call them our people team, our recruiting team would say the rebranding has really kind of lifted their efforts because they've got a very current, contemporary, crisp message. But we're also always working with them to figure out what we can do to continue to help them. And that's, you know, that's increasing now because obviously, you know, the war for talent is pretty real. And also we know exactly what kinds of skill sets we're looking for. So it's a real partnership. And it's something that I actually expect that we'll spend more time on in the next year because it's necessary. And also because, you know, in my view, like the employee experience and our people build up to our brand. So I'm also pretty involved in internal communications, kind of second chair to our chief people officer, because I really view, particularly at a company this size, that the two are totally interconnected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. And just the reflection of the thinking that occurs, the content marketing, I think also helps to showcase the smarts that exist within Navigate.
Yes, for sure. And we also don't have only like our most senior people authoring content. Like great content comes from a lot of places in Navigate. There's a lot of opportunity here. And I think the way people are involved in our content marketing effort speaks to that. I also think it's reflective of just the way we operate with clients. Every single person on a consulting team is interacting, engaging, has a seat at the table with the client. So why should it be any different for content marketing?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're selling people, really, right? So they need to showcase their talents.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's any final thoughts? I mean, this has been great. I feel like it was rushed. I don't know if it was felt rushed to other folks, but whenever we talk, we just go and go and go. But any final thoughts on what happens next, or any advice, perhaps more importantly, for our audience?
I mean, we've had a really successful partnership, and I think that our needs have changed over time. So, you know, sort of initially it was the sort of rebranding and what was the story, and now it's like content marketing. But I think the beautiful thing for me is that we know we chose exactly the right person, the right team, because whenever there's like a twist or a turn in the business or in something we're doing, like you and the team are always the people who want to talk to about it. And we've had enough shifts and changes in the focus of our work together that I have confidence in that continuing to be the case going forward. I think, you know, I've had a lot of really good agency partnerships in my career, but this one is quite different. And it makes me really excited about the future. It also means that I get fresh perspective when I need it, because sometimes, you know, you can try as hard as you might, but you can get into Navigate think. And sometimes I'll just say, John, Lindsay, Bill, what do you think we should do? And I love that you're ready to answer that.
And for the record, Bill and Lindsay do all of the heavy lifting. All right, we have a couple of minutes for any questions. Cassie, I don't know if you've collected any as we've gone along. Howdy.
Hello.
We have.
So if anyone has any questions, you can drop them into the Q&A section. Please do, and we'll address them. One question that I had that I wanted to start out with for Heidi is when it comes to the marketing strategy for Navigate, what is your risk tolerance? In other words, how willing are you to take chances?
I guess we're always looking at the data first to make decisions. I think that, it is an art and a science, and there was a little bit less emphasis on the science a few years ago. So I would say that most of the time, we're really confident in where we're spending our time and our money. And I don't think that, I think I'm probably more risk averse than some of my sort of the partners and the executive team members. I'm always the one who's like, wait, let's make sure this is like good before we run at it. So I think it's actually a great combination. They're really ready to try new things. I'm really ready to lead them to new things, but I also want to make sure I vet things. But that's actually been one of the great things that we've done a few things, like we've piloted a few things with Scribewise. Like we had a hunch that like LinkedIn paid promotion wasn't really going to be great for us, but we had like little excellent opportunities to kind of test that out, learn from it, and then decide, hey, do we want to make a bigger bet here, or does it not make sense for us? So we've been able to take risks in like small, effective ways so far.
I was gonna bring up the we did an experiment on LinkedIn, and it was not a huge bet. It wasn't a huge gamble by any stretch. It was not a huge spend, but we've talked about it off the top. Like you have a very much a C-level audience. They're not hanging out on LinkedIn quite as much as the rest of us proles.
Yeah, and you don't learn these things like until you do it. And I know you have other clients who, they don't have the same targets, but they're very B2B and high end. And it's just might be different for them because they have like a very specific target, and it might be inside, different universe of company size. But just for us, we have to like learn by doing. And I think Navigate's always been really good at that. And also, we are a very like candid culture. So if I say to them, like, we're not going to do this because like we invested in this and I just don't see the return and I'm not really supportive of it, we might have like a conversation. There might be different points of view, but things are like out on the table. And I was saying to my boss today, like, I'm really busy, but like, there's not a thing I'm working on that isn't a good thing, that I think is not a good use of my time or Navigate's time. That's a great spot to be in.
That's awesome.
Speaking of being busy, here, that's a good segue into this next question. So you mentioned how important one-to-one sharing of content is for Navigate. So how do you get your team motivated to share when their day-to-days get really busy?
Well, first of all, they're motivated to share because they're salespeople in the end, even though we don't really call them that, right? But they want to bring in more business, and they are seeing absolutely that a very large portion of the engagements we are winning involved content that we produced in some fashion or another along the way. So there is natural motivation there. And I think for them, it's like a new-ish tool in their arsenal because this wasn't like an engine that was really up and running until, maybe like, I guess, 18 months ago. The other thing though, is that, I consider my role marketing, but I consider my role change. Like change is the name of the game in everything that we've done since we've been doing marketing and Navigate. Like marketing and Navigate doesn't look anything like it did 3 years ago. And I think none of us are sad about that. That's a good thing because, this company is growing and changing and lots of things need to change. That's not a slight on what was. It's just like, what got you here won't get you there. So we do there's a lot of accountability. There's a meeting like every Tuesday morning. And we have like kind of a zany approach to how we measure it, but we are looking at like, okay, of our sales team, who's used content in the last week, and how many of the opportunities that are in our pipeline are related to our use of content marketing. So like, you know, I told you I started my career in investment banking. I love data, and we use it when we have it.
Heidi has created what I consider to be one of the best marketing metrics I've seen, which is thoughtful shares, which is, so they track who shares the content, not just liking it on LinkedIn or kind of almost auto forwarding it, but who shares it in a thoughtful way with a prospect or a client. And it's hard to track that. It's a fairly manual process, but that is where the bang comes for the buck, I think, is, and holding people's feet to the fire and saying to the partners at the company, you didn't do it this week, and you got to get your ass in gear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, some of it is also, you have to listen really well for what's on the mind of the client, what's on the mind of the prospect. Like some of the greatest conversations I have inside Navigate are with a couple of people who are very good at the initial prospecting phase, and they'll just call me and say like, I spoke to so-and-so and this is what's coming up for them in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And then that overlapped with what our strategy is, will drive the conversations that I have with, you know, John and the team and the content that we develop. And like, that's how it should work. You know, if we're making stuff up out of nothing, like that's not good. We don't ever do that. There's so much that's happening in the market. There's so much we can respond to. So it's often like, which thing are we going to work on next? That's the choice we have to make.
So which persona do you think is most responsive to the content that you're creating?
Well, it's the person who receives content delivered to them on a one-to-one individualized basis on a topic that's important to them. So it's not like that it's the CEO or the CIO or the whatever. It's that, you know, the partner or the salesperson inside Navigate knows that this big public life sciences company is dealing with these 3 things, and we're able to share something with them that is journalistic, that is helpful to get them to be able to start to think it through. And one of the things that we love to see is sometimes we'll share something with like a C-level buyer, and then they'll share it with their teams. And we think, okay, that's when we know we really done something right? Because it was helpful enough to them that they're sending it out to other people to say, look at this, like these are the kind of things we need to be thinking about.
Yeah. It's great. So we have one more question. Could you talk a little bit more, Heidi, about what differentiates Scribewise from the typical agency? This is not a plant. This is actually a question that someone asked in the Q&A.
Embarrassing.
So first of all, I said that it's a little like being in a foxhole, right? So the marketing team at Navigate is small, and we work with people all across Navigate every day, but we do a ton of work with John and Bill and Lindsay and Lauren. And if we didn't enjoy that process, or if we had to do a lot of work on drafts and things that came back, that would make things really tough. And we don't have to do that. I think the other thing is, like, when we went through this process of the RFP, the enthusiasm of the references was super palpable. I mean, there wasn't an agency that we were looking at that didn't have good references. Like, they all are great, they all have great work, but there was just something about the connection and the partnership that I saw that others had. And I guess the other thing is like, there was something to me about the way Scribewise expressed itself that struck a chord with me. Like, it was no bullshit. It was like, don't pay attention to this, do pay attention to that. It was plain speaking and it was informed. And that's the best of Navigate too. So there was some like almost connective tissue between the cultures that that was really important.
Thank you. I do think others, very smart people have said this. I'm certainly not making it up, but strategy is often just deciding what not to do. And I think that's really hard in marketing, where, you know, once every 2 weeks, someone says, hey, should we be on TikTok? Or whatever they say. And you're like, no, we are doing this, which requires confidence that it's the right thing to be doing. But you also have to be open to all the other things also. You can't just have a closed mind. And that is hard to do. So we enjoy doing it with you and with the rest of the team at Navigate. You guys have been great partners. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom with us today.
Well, thank you for agreeing to complete the RFP, because like it really did pay off. And we knew, yeah. I mean, you know, it's like it took a little persuasion for you, but I'm glad that we kept at it. And you know, I feel really good about the year that's ahead and the work that we're doing. I think that content marketing, especially during the pandemic, has become really important. So I know that, and we didn't really get to this, right? But I know that when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were like, oh, stop spending on marketing. We were like, what? Why would we do that? Because if anything, our online presence mattered way more than it did before. So all the things that we already had planned, we needed to really like almost double down on. And that's what we've done. And I think it's been really important to our success. We're headed for another year of really strong growth. Because our people are great and we get amazing feedback from clients. And so all good things.
So Cassie just popped in the link to donate to Easter Seals. If you would do that, we would appreciate it so much. And also she put the link in earlier. If you're interested in that job, hopefully if you enjoyed hearing Heidi speak, you realize that she's awesome to work with. And if you're interested in that job, you can apply. And if you can't find that link back in the chat, you can also, oh, there it is. Thank you, Cassie. But you can also go to Navigate's website and find it under the careers page. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Hope this was informative. We do have another Marketing for Humans webinar coming up in November. That will be with Pete Van Nest of Pinpoint on November 10th. We hope you can join us then. And until then, have a great day. And thanks again for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you.